how do you look for the nonverbal cues so you know when to speak without cutting someone off or avoid the dead silence?
Yeah, this one's tricky because I have been on meetings with 9 people, which you can see on one screen. I've also been in meetings with 56 or 60 people. And at that point, you've got those two screens and you're pressing that arrow to scroll. So it's kind of unrealistic to expect the facilitator or the participants for that matter to see all the nonverbal cues. So similar to what we've said with the other questions, this requires a little planning. And what I would recommend is whoever's leading the meeting stipulate up top or stipulate when you go into an activity that this is how we're going to get answers. But also, so you don't get the crickets, let people know you expect them to participate. Or, I want to hear one answer from everyone, or we're going to take comments from everyone who wants to speak today. Whatever it is, but let people know it's okay to speak. Invite them to speak however you want them to. If you'd rather they hold up the hand or use the raise hand function, say so. If you want them just to unmute and just start talking, say so. Or if you want them to place their questions or comments in the chat, say that. Two people that we know, two pastors actually from Gilead Chicago, Vince Amlin and Rebecca Anderson, each one does this a little differently, but they will say before they want people to speak on the meeting, unmute your mic and talk, or if you would please place this in the chat, I will then read them out. So, plan for how you want it to go and then communicate that to your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're the facilitator or the leader of that, I always like to give a little extra time in there. So you'll say, I want you to unmute or wave me down or put it in chat.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to talk about. And then because there's always that little bit of lag, whether people are typing or they're nervous to go first.
Yes.
So building in that little bit of time helps. I think, if one tricky thing is that some people, and you kind of alluded to this, aren't comfortable having their video on, or maybe they don't have a camera, or they're just joining by phone for some reason. And
Mm-hmm.
that gets into even trickier territory because you don't know when that person has something that they want to contribute. And so that can be problems, but we also, this problem also goes back to non-video conference calls.
Right.
You always had people cutting each other off, and somebody would talk and then somebody else, and they both talk and they say, no, you go, no, you go. And then they'll always say, well, I was just going to say, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
and make their point. And so it is one of those things that I don't think there's going to be like a solution for,
Sure.
especially if it's just a meeting, but it definitely helps if the facilitator is planning for that and
Mm-hmm.
knows what instructions they're going to give on when somebody should be ready to speak.
Yeah, you gave a great example when you get the crosstalk, because yes, that happens if someone's a non-video participant, and sometimes it happens with video participants. I saw this with my Loyola students this year, and there was a lot of, there you go. So what I recommend then, what I would do for my students is it's up to the facilitator or the leader of the meeting to say, okay, we're going to hear from Randy first, and then Mary, I want your comment. So I would recommend that the facilitator be kind of the decider when there's two people talking and just say, I want to hear from Susie first and Sam second, or,
Yeah, and that's great because you give Sam an opportunity to get unmuted and be ready to go
mm-hmm.
without that extra lag again that we were just talking about. So Sam knows that he's on deck and is ready to go.
Yeah. Another thing I read about this actually a couple weeks ago, the New York Times interviewed students to see how they were doing with an entire Zoom semester. And one of the questions they asked was, do you participate in class or not? And overwhelmingly, the students said no, because in order to participate, they'd have to, make that reach and unmute themselves. And the reporter said, so that's the difference, is unmuting yourself? And they said yes. So what I try to do is I encourage my class to leave themselves unmuted the entire time, and they're welcome to speak up anytime. And if there is crosstalk, I then say, okay, this one goes first, that person goes second.
Interesting. And I'm glad to hear that that's worked out.
I would say yes, it's mostly worked out. It's, college students aren't the most talkative bunch, but I give them the chat option as we discussed, and that seems to work better with certain students. But all in all, we got through, we had a great semester.